This is Women Road Warriors with Shelley Johnson and Kathy Tuccaro. From the corporate office to the cab of a truck, they're here to inspire and empower women in all professions. So gear down, sit back, and enjoy.
Welcome. We're an award-winning show dedicated to empowering women in every profession through inspiring stories and expert insights. No topic is off limits on our show. We power women on the road to success with expert and celebrity interviews and information you need. I'm Shelley.
And I'm Kathy.
Gender discrimination is a pervasive thing that still plagues the workplace. In spite of the many victories women have made, it rears its ugly head in many insidious ways. Maji Graziano knows this all too well as she faced gender discrimination firsthand. She's a true champion for women who rose to become a beacon of empowerment and innovation after being raised in a family battling alcoholism and surviving as a single mother at 19. Maji entered the job recruitment industry where she formed her own company and developed an app for her recruiting software. That venture put her face to face with gender discrimination and a legal battle with male business partners who tried to undermine her intellectual property rights before the app launched. In spite of this shock, Maji won and began to fight for women's empowerment in business. Maji is the author of Ignite Culture, which became a Wall Street Journal bestseller. Her company, Keen Alignment, is on the Inc. 5000 list of America's fastest-growing private companies. Maji's received many honors and accolades, which include being named one of the 100 most influential women in Silicon Valley. We have Maji with us today to tell her story and empower our listeners with her message of positive change and transformation. Welcome, Maji. Thank you for being on the show with us.
Woohoo! Welcome, Maji.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Oh my goodness, you are a true champion and trailblazer. I'm so impressed with you. Would you mind maybe giving us a summary of your background?
Okay, I'll give you a summary. I started in the recruiting industry when I really had no other options, literally had no other options. And I started in that business at 20 years old. By the time I was 27, I knew it was time to start on my own and started my own company. And then I sold out of the recruiting industry in 2008, days before the market fell apart.
Oh, wow.
So I would say I've been really lucky in my life. And that luck wouldn't have been possible had I not been a really disciplined, hard worker, and paid attention to when I was ready to make a move. So I left Illinois. I sold my house before the market fell out, sold the company. It was all like wham, bam, bam, and moved to California to take my intellectual property, which I thought people want this. People want to do a better job hiring. They paid me all those fees all those years for using this formula to put the right person in the right job. And so I wanted to turn it into a software. And one of the things that I do that works for me and also doesn't is I embark on things I know nothing about and I jump right in. So I went to Silicon Valley to turn this workflow into an automated workflow. And I had 3 options to choose from. And I picked the people who looked like the best. They'd done it before. I hadn't. And neither had the other 2 options. Started working with them, and about 8 months into it, started seeing really big red flags, and it escalated. And right before we were supposed to go live with the launch, I pulled the plug, which we can talk about more, and then was on a non-compete. So I called every one of my clients and said, what else can I do for you if I can't do recruiting and I can't do hiring and I can't do anything that has to do with putting people in a job? And they said, well, one of the things that made you very effective is you understood our culture and you understood what it would take to succeed here. So can you help us? Can you deconstruct how you knew that so you can help us have healthier cultures and bring that culture alive for new people coming in? So I started doing that. And that's 2 years into that, we got into the Inc. 5000. And so that's kind of long story short. My book was written and went to the publisher in live last February, so 2023. And right now, I work with organizations. I work specifically with the C-suite on helping them identify and remove the roadblocks to their own effectiveness with inspiring people towards the mission of the organization.
I love this. You are so fortuitous. And this is so needed in the business cultures when you think about it. You know, I think a lot of people are in denial. They think things have really changed in the past 40 or 50 years. But you're seeing gender discrimination.
Oh, man. Here's the thing. Yes, I am seeing gender discrimination. And when I tell you the story about the how I left that software company, I think it'll blow your mind because it's just insane.
Mm-hmm.
What I see in these companies, so I work with finance organizations, healthcare, manufacturing, distribution, heavy male dominated. And what I see more than quote unquote gender discrimination, however it does exist there, is this command and control internal competition where they sick the dogs on each other. And if you understand the male brain, it's that pecking order thing. And so what happens is pecking order is what's running the show in organizations right now, even organizations that are nice people. They don't even know that it's like they can't see it. It's hidden from their view. Somebody just said to me, well, Maji, without sales, the rest of the organization doesn't even exist. They're supporting characters, if that. But the king of the castle is sales. And of course, 90% of the sales in heavy manufacturing, finance, distribution is men. So it's so insidious. And I even see them doing it to each other. Men doing it to men, this pecking order, internal competition, win at all costs. I'll share more after you ask me some more questions, but we lead this program called Deep Alignment. And it's where we take a small group of executives and we take them to the woods, kind of, like a retreat center, not with umbrellas and margaritas, but, rigorous, deep internal work. And the breakthroughs that these men mostly have in how they treat their wives, their women coworkers, their daughters, they're bringing their dog eat dog pecking order, win at all costs into every avenue of their life. And it's so natural for them, so habitual, so stuck in their neural pathways that they don't even know there's anything wrong with it.
Where does this originate? Is it testosterone driven or is it just something that it's always been done that way?
Well, I actually think so. There's this great author, Luann, I'm going to butcher her last name, so I'll look her up. She talks about the male and the female brain. And she actually has done it. She'd be a great guest. She has done a lot. Luann Brizendine. I was going to say that exactly that way. So she is a psychotherapist and also neuroscientist, and she has studied both the female and the male brain. And please don't quote me. I mean, I am on radio, but exactly around 90% we're all the same. Like our brains, man, women, female, male, but it's that 10%. And it's not just the testosterone and the estrogen. It's this thing called vasopressin. And so the brain, even little boys are wired to who's first. So she says, if you look at girls standing in line in first grade to go out to recess and boys standing in line, the girls are talking and they're playing and they're doing, take me out to the ball game, hand games, but the boys are fighting for who's going to be first. So I think it is epigenetics. I think it's passed down, but I also think we live in a society that is male dominated. Look at our political system. The women are sparse.
Yeah.
And
Oh, yeah.
it is winning at all costs. I mean, look at our current political. It's just amazing. And then you go into these companies and you look and look and look for females on the executive team. And if they speak up, they're labeled as bitches. And if
Yeah.
they don't speak up, they're labeled as doormats.
Isn't that the truth?
Yeah. Yeah. It makes no sense at all. You know, this command and control. And when you were talking about little boys act differently, what flashed in my brain was standing in line in elementary school and seeing these boys, squabbling with each other, trying to get first in line. I mean, I'm first. I remember this. And I remember standing back going, what's wrong with you guys? I mean, come on,
Well, it's she even said, here she is in the business, has a little boy wanting to try to change him, and learned pretty early on that wasn't the right thing to do. But as moms, I think what I would do differently if my boys were younger and I had more knowledge, I didn't understand or even know. I didn't even know there was gender discrimination when I was in recruiting. We were all women. There was one man in the company and he was the owner. And he treated us all the same, and he ran by fear. So all these years later, I can look back and say, wow, I succeeded out of a fear of being homeless and of not being able to support my son. And the leader of that organization led that way. And we were all supporting someone, ourselves, children, or maybe our parents, and we were all in this state of frenetic, I must produce. And we did.
Right.
And we became highly successful, but it wasn't based on what I teach now. And what I teach now is pick a calling, a purpose, what's your dharma? Like, what is the inspiration you have, the intrinsic motivation to make a difference? It's way different. And when I left recruiting, I think it took about 4 years for me to settle down my sympathetic nervous system to realize I was no longer running on the treadmill of fear of failure. Like, it was in my bones, in my cells, and even that industry, the recruiting industry. Now it's a little more balanced, but back in the 80s and 90s, predominantly women, and predominantly tough women. And so we didn't know there was anything, like, I didn't know that there was anything going on in the corporate world with discrimination. Like, okay, that's not true. So I just remember, as I'm saying this man calling and saying, I need a really good looking front desk person.
Oh, really? Wow.
So it was going on. I just didn't know in my early 20s that this was a problem.
And unless you encounter it, people are in denial. When you're talking about good looking, I remember there was a restaurant that I used to frequent, and I knew some of the waitresses there. And there was this really misogynist customer that came in. He was just arrogant, and just nobody liked him. The regular waitress that he would deal with wasn't working one night. So he told the owner of the restaurant he wanted to see all of the waitresses. And he had them lined up, and he wanted to see which one was the best looking. They could wait on him.
What?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and blatantly. And I remember thinking, why on earth wouldn't you just kick this guy out? I mean, that's a patron you don't want.
No kidding.
So I think this unconscious bias, even for me, you read my bio. I really like the truth is everything you said was the truth. And as I'm listening to it, I'm like, wow, I really have kind of overcome some odds. My dad was a Taurus, Italian, Sicilian, in the plumbing industry, big income earner, and also volatile. He had way too much fun with drugs and alcohol. And when he was coming down, he would be violent. He would be totally disrespectful to my mom and the girls. We had 4 of us girls. We would sit around the dinner table, which was like a big picnic table with a bench, but a nice one. And she would put food on the table and he would rail about what she did wrong with the food, and she would ignore it. And my sisters and I would just kind of look down, and I'm sure we were all like, what the heck? Every one of us was out of the house and married by 19 years old. Every one of us was divorced by 21 years old. It was this embedded, now I know it's called neuropathway of how men are supposed to be. So when I got into this recruiting company and they ran based on fear, I mean, we had to ask permission to get up and go to the bathroom.
Oh.
If we were 1 minute late for work, he would take us off of rotation. And in a straight commission job, what that meant is there was no candidate coming into us for us to place. And every person we placed, we made between $300 and $450. So the punitive way we were treated, and nobody questioned it until we left. And we all left and went to work for the competition, and it was a completely different environment. But even with these employers saying, well, she needs to be pretty, she needs to be good looking, even that she needed to be a she, I don't think it was until 1988 that I started thinking, this is wrong.
Yeah.
And then when I moved to California, I knew nothing about the venture capital business, nothing. I was, there's this show called Oklahoma, and the girl moves to New York and she's got this suitcase and she's totally gullible. That's how I was at 48 years old going to Silicon Valley. I made a deal with this software creator with no contract in place. I brought my son. I brought my long-term 7 years business associate. I brought people on the board. I brought the software company that I was using to give assessments. I mean, hook, line, and sinker, I fell into this. We're going to change the world with this software, and I had no agreements. And he was a misogynist. I didn't even know what that word was until I was like 49 years old. I never had a reason to use it. But the man was cheating on his wife. He had multiple people on the side. He was not paying bills. When my younger and much more astute about what was going on, I was so in the weeds of building this thing and so excited. She challenged him on open book management. What are we doing with the money? Where's the money going? How come we're not getting paid? She challenged him one day too much, and he shut off her cell phone.
Oh, my.
Email, and I got 27 missed calls on my phone, and I just kept ignoring it because I didn't know the phone number. That night, I finally answered, and it was her. And she was convinced that I was in cahoots with him, and I cut her out. And it took about 2 years to repair that relationship. When I challenged him on how he treated her, he said, if you don't like it, you're next. I have your intellectual property. I have everything that's in your brain, and I have your son. I don't need you.
Oh, my goodness.
It was awful. And I was at the lowest point in my life. I had gone without pay for a year. I had sunk $500,000 of real money into this development, my reputation. I had customer, like in a software company, of customer, like user feedback. My real customers were on this feedback board. And I had to unravel all of this. And the statement that will get me the rest of my life is a man that I put on the board called me and said, Maji, you would never abort the baby in the final trimester. So why would you abort the software right before it goes to market? No way would they have ever said anything like that to a man.
Oh, heck no. Not at all.
And that when I at the lowest point, so after all of this, I find myself laying in bed one morning at 11 o'clock, just can't even move. I am in the lowest level of despair there is. Blankets over my head, and my 23-year-old son walked in the door, my bedroom, and he said, what are you doing, Mom? And I said, this is the same guy who worked at the software company. And I said, I've messed everything up. I got into business with the wrong person. I didn't have any agreements, blah, blah, blah. And he said, the woman who raised me would never be a victim. Get up and do something about it.
Oh, wow.
So I did get up and I did what I thought was the best thing. I called a therapist.
That's always a good first move, absolutely. But very fortuitous of your son, very
Yeah.
wise for 23.
Yeah. And
Mm.
so I went to see the therapist and I said, do I need Prozac, shock treatment? I've never felt this bad about myself. He said, honey, you don't need any drugs. You don't even need therapist. You need an intellectual property attorney. And that was the day I filed to get my intellectual property back. But like, I did not know that this is just the way business is done in Silicon Valley. I did not know that when you have equity in a company, they'll keep diluting you to the point where you build something, it's what you've given your life to, and then you're out. And and I, it's not a software now, it's just a Excel spreadsheet and a FileMaker Pro. And it's okay. The difference I'm making is different. But wow, that taught me so much about, my nature is to trust, maybe too much, almost to the point of gullibility. And now when I work with women, it's like, what is your intuition telling you?
Well, and this was something that you needed so you could help other people. I think that we encounter things for a reason sometimes, even though it doesn't make sense when we're first dealing with it.
Stay tuned for more of Women Road Warriors coming up.
Dean Michael, the tax doctor here. I have one question for you. Do you want to stop worrying about the IRS? If the answer is yes, then look no further. I've been around for years. I've helped countless people across the country, and my success rate speaks for itself. So now you know where to find good, honest help with your tax problems. What are you waiting for? If you owe more than $10,000 to the IRS or haven't filed in years, call me now at 888-557-4020 or go to mytaxhelpmd.com for a free consultation and get your life back.
Industry movement Trucking Moves America Forward is telling the story of the industry. Our safety champions, the women of trucking, independent contractors, the next generation of truckers, and more. Help us promote the best of our industry. Share your story and what you love about trucking. Share images of a moment you're proud of. And join us on social media. Learn more at truckingmovesamerica.com.
Welcome back to Women Road Warriors with Shelley Johnson and Kathy Tuccaro.
If you're enjoying this informative episode of Women Road Warriors, I wanted to mention Kathy and I explore all kinds of topics that will power you on the road to success. We feature a lot of expert interviews. Plus, we feature celebrities and women who've been trailblazers. Please check out our podcast at womenroadwarriors.com and click on our episodes page. We're also available wherever you listen to podcasts, on all the major podcast channels like Spotify, Apple, YouTube, Amazon Music, Audible, you name it. Check us out and bookmark our podcast. Also, don't forget to follow us on social media. We're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, LinkedIn, YouTube, and other sites. And tell others about us. We want to help as many women as possible. Maji Graziano is on a mission to empower women and remove the roadblocks and barriers of gender discrimination and ineffective, often toxic work environments. She's passionate about creating a positive business culture where all people can grow and succeed. She helps businesses create healthier cultures. She works with people in the C-suite, identify the roadblocks, and remove their own ineffectiveness with inspiring people who can further the mission of the organization. What Maji sees a lot of is command and control internal competition in male-dominated professions. What happens is that pecking order is running the show in the organizations, but the people in charge can't see it. Her program, Deep Alignment, takes a small group of executives to a retreat center for rigorous internal work. They realize that they're bringing their fierce pecking order, dog-eat-dog, win-at-all-costs mentality into every aspect of their lives. They're biologically wired to do this, and it's passed down culturally. Her insights are amazing, and she's making a huge difference in stopping the double standards and the toxic cultures. Maji's dealt with some of the worst of it herself. Maji, when you talk about business with the dog-eat-dog mentality, that's a phrase that's been used for years, and it really is true. And I've never understood why business has to be that way. I mean, this command and control philosophy, like you said, you go in and change in business environments. Command and control, dog eat dog, the fear of failure. You don't get the best out of people with that.
No, you don't. As a matter of fact, I bring this into my work with organizations. If you understand neuroscience, which is really the science of how the brain works, when a person is in despair or hopelessness, they can only be effective 5% of the time. When a person is in anxiety or fear and they're anxious and they've got that adrenaline and cortisol and norepinephrine attacking their body in high doses, they can only be effective 10% of the time. When they're angry, annoyed, agitated, pissed off, upset, dog eat dog, they can only be effective 25% of the time. And so what these business leaders do not understand is that which people have been trained to be, they're leaving 75% of personal effectiveness on the table, and they're wasting money. And when the frustrated are frustrated, that aggressive defensive nature actually causes passive defensiveness to everybody around them. And so you've got this polarization like we see in society of aggressive defensive and passive defensive. And the CEOs that I talk to are in denial, just like you started this whole conversation with gender. There's gender bias and there's denial. They're in denial that they have polarity in their organization and that they're wasting their salary on people because they're allowing and tolerating this eating each other alive culture. And when I work with CEOs, I'm a speaker for this group called Vistage. They used to be tech, but I speak all over the country in Canada for business leaders. And when I show them the culture quadrant and the high right side of high challenge, high support is that they're performance catalysts. They all raise their hand to put themselves in the culture, in the performance catalyst quadrant. However, the next day, when I speak to the people who report to them, they all raise their hand for being in the high challenge, low support, where it's fear, frustration, and manipulation is ruling the day. These people are in meetings together all the time, and there's a complete disconnection of reality versus what we make believe and we want to believe. And it's mind-blowing. It's when I wrote my book, the whole first third of the book is about the leader, whoever it is, no matter what level they're at, looking in the mirror and telling the truth about what's really going on. And I'll tell you what, people resist that, Shelley. They don't want to face it.
People don't like change. They like denial. And when it's an ingrained culture, it is hard to break. And I'm thinking about the social media today. That's all defensive. Everybody, it's a defensive nature. It's bringing out the worst in people. I think people, because they have the anonymity, they can show it more than you would actually see it maybe in the workplace. But the command and control isn't good. Politics, oh my goodness. People go run for office and they say the nastiest things about each other. And then they have to work together. So I mean, it's everywhere. And I think what you're doing is so very needed. I commend you on your ability to really see what's wrong and make these changes, because it will bring out the best in productivity. It will make people happier, healthier. And isn't that what it's all about?
Yeah. And so I lead this program called Deep Alignment. And I took 7 of the highest producing leaders, meaning let's say the company does $1 billion, they do 700 million in sales. And they have been accused of leaving a wake of bad energy around them. And they came into this deep alignment scale of 1 to 10. They were interested in being there at a 3, although I didn't find that out until the last day. By the time they left, their interest in being there and becoming better human citizens was a 10.
Excellent.
And here's how I got to them. We had them look at their life and look at how they go home at night. Are they in a state of courage? In a state of courage, you're, by the way, 65% effective. And you have things like endorphins and dopamine and serotonin and oxytocin literally running through your body. And when you're in a state of engagement, you're 79% effective and also hitting the joy zone, Joy, joy, like actually possible. In innovation, you're 89% effective. These men, when they told the truth, they were going home and giving their wives and their families the least of them, the worst part of them, all the residual damage from this fighting and jockeying for position and resistance. They were bringing that all home. And every one of them at one point in the 3-day retreat admitted that the things I was saying, they've heard from their spouse, but they tuned her out. And so eventually the leader says, oh my gosh, I have been competing with everyone as long as I know, whether it's even if it's a board game or a basketball game or where we're going to watch a movie, everything's a fight.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm running a racket at work, like, pretending to be this guy who wants a team, but really I'm isolating sales from every other part of the organization. And when he broke, the rest of them came along. And when I say broke, I mean the opening for personal responsibility of what he was creating. I've had men say to me, how come you don't do this for the government? I think there are pockets in the government that are trying to be better, but there is also so much corruption. So much. I mean, I was just at a conference and there was some political people there, and what they told us over drinks is that they have been so much as told, you do not cross the line. You don't cross the line of Democratic and Republican. And I think until we have enough people who really are wanting to make this world a better place and are willing to give up that ego and that power and that control and that dominance, I think we're going to be in a little bit of trouble.
Yep. I agree.
And it is the feminine brain that wants to collaborate and wants to connect and wants to build cooperation. So I do think the answer is getting more women in leadership, but I also think if the women are the only ones getting better, how do we go without men getting better too?
You have to have a unified effort on that. It has to be unified front because polarity doesn't work. I mean, just look at magnets. We played with those in school. If the opposites, they run away from each other, right? It doesn't work. You have to have cohesiveness. And this is something that you're creating. And I find it really amazing that you're able to reach people, get them to see what they're doing, and get beyond their ego, because ego is huge. That's a big barrier.
Yeah.
And it comes from survival. Like as children, when Erickson has these 8 stages of development, and it is natural to be needing to survive as a kid. Something happens, you feel like you're no longer enough, or you don't fit in, or you're not safe. And so you adopt personality traits and you protect yourself. And the ego gets invented and created, and we don't even know. I mean, there's people that are in my workshops that are in their 40s and 50s, and it's an epiphany that they even have an ego, that's not who they really are. Like somebody said to me, well, Maji, this is just my DNA. I was born this way. I said, no, you weren't. No, you weren't. You weren't born making everybody else wrong. You created that to survive things that didn't go well for you. And people just don't know this. It's mind-blowing to me that this isn't everyday knowledge, but it isn't.
Self-awareness is not something that we're taught. And you do encounter quite often in this power culture, patronizing, condescending behavior.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And would you say that maybe men do more of that than women?
So this is a slippery wicket. So
Mhm.
a lot of women that I have encountered in business who have made it to, let's say, director level and above, they man up,
Okay.
and they're almost worse than the guys.
Okay.
Because
Yeah, I've
they
seen that
smile
too.
at your face. They smile at you and pretend to be sweet while the knife is going in. And so I think I think we all of us that are wanting to support women need to be very careful about thinking it's only men.
Mhm.
It's more of a I must survive mentality, and I'm going to step over or on top of anybody in my way. And some dominate, some cheat, some steal, some lie. We know those people right now
Mhm.
in our news. Some manipulate, some act like they're your best friend. But I do think all of it's about survival. All of it
Yep.
is a mechanism to protect oneself against not feeling good enough. And so because we all have core wounds, like everyone on the planet has a wound of either betrayal, abandonment, or shame. And some people, when they're in my programs, they're like, I have all three, do I get a bonus? But when we can't be with that shame and that betrayal and that abandonment, we cover it up. It's like icing on a piece of crap. And we pretend the icing is our pretense, but the crap is how we really feel inside. And then we treat other people like crap.
Sure.
And I just think honestly, if we could just heal people and get them back to their true nature, we would have a much happier society.
We would, and we might not have war. Yeah.
Stay tuned for more of Women Road Warriors coming up.
Dean Michael, the tax doctor here. I have one question for you. Do you want to stop worrying about the IRS? If the answer is yes, then look no further. I've been around for years. I've helped countless people across the country, and my success rate speaks for itself. So now you know where to find good, honest help with your tax problems. What are you waiting for? If you owe more than $10,000 to the IRS or haven't filed in years, call me now at 888-557-4020 or go to mytaxhelpmd.com for a free consultation and get your life back.
Industry movement Trucking Moves America Forward is telling the story of the industry. Our safety champions, the women of trucking, independent contractors, the next generation of truckers, and more. Help us promote the best of our industry. Share your story and what you love about trucking. Share images of a moment you're proud of. And join us on social media. Learn more at truckingmovesamerica.com.
Welcome back to Women Road Warriors with Shelley Johnson and Kathy Tuccaro.
When a person's angry or agitated, they can only be effective 25% of the time. Business leaders don't understand when employees are in this state, they're leaving 75% of personal effectiveness on the table. And the managers are wasting money with this loss of productivity due to a toxic work environment. The aggressive nature of many management styles creates passive defensiveness in the workforce. That polarizes a company. Maji Graziano is working to change all of this. She's the author of Ignite Culture, which became a Wall Street Journal bestseller. Her company, Keen Alignment, is on the Inc. 5000 list of America's fastest-growing private companies. She teaches people how to make changes, to identify their intrinsic motivation to make a difference. She helps management get rid of the bad energy that they've created with their power culture. Her program, Deep Alignment, is responsible for this positive change. She helps both men and women managers and executives look at their life and how they go home at night. She helps them break away from the survival mentality that's at the core of dominance. She gets them to realize when they're in a state of resistance, they're taking that home to their families. The managers have to take a hard look at change for the positive. Deep alignment helps them take personal responsibility and get to a state of courage and engagement where they hit the joy zone, and a state of innovation where a person is 90% effective. The key to improving productivity in an organization is the willingness to give up the control and dominance that's toxic in the workforce. Maji says until that happens, we're going to be in a bit of trouble. Maji, how big of a factor do you think greed is? Human beings can be really greedy.
Well, I can tell you for me, remember when I had moved to California, I saw, yes, I wanted to bring the software to masses. I also saw dollar signs. It's part of when I speak to people publicly, I was taken hostage by my own need to succeed, i.e. greed. Had I not been focused on those dollar signs, I would have seen the warning signs that I was with a crook. By the way, the guy I chose to be my partner in business had already absconded with money from a former company. But I was, I had the tunnel vision. I had those blinders on. I think greed comes in many ways, not just money, but I think it's power. I think it's if that whole survival of the fittest, if I have more money, if I have more power, if I have more control, no one can get me. Right. So I think it's, if we could come up with a bigger word than greed, like that encompasses all of that. And in Darwin, I think it's the guy who said survival of the fittest. This training and education that everybody got, like only the strong survive, I think is the root of it.
So maybe we should analyze Darwin. He didn't give us a good message there. Kind of encouraging it.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Actually, there's all sorts of evidence that that's not true.
Interesting.
That the survival of the fittest is not true. And there's a great book by Harari, and it's Sapiens, and you got to be in a good mood to read it because it really does explain the human condition and war and domination, world domination. And we are wired to kill. We are wired to control.
Yep.
But we're also wired to love. And we got to get enough people, fear causes war. Love is the exact opposite. On the vibrational scale, it's completely opposite. But there's no celebration. I think the reason, regardless of how you feel about his politics, the reason Barack Obama got in is he gave a message of hope to America. And he wasn't qualified for the job, really. Like if you look at his track record.
Right.
And he got the job because we needed hope. Now, since then, I think we went to the other side of people want to be angry. And it's everywhere. Like you said, social media. I'm thinking of abandoning my social media presence just to keep that away from me.
It is so negative, no doubt about it. And that just puts you in a bad mood, and it does not encourage endorphins and feel-good emotions at all. It creates anxiety. I mean, look at the teenagers and how it's negatively impacting them. It's insidious, really. But what you're doing and the changes that you're making in the business culture, you're giving people hope. I love this. I really do.
I think you're right. And I like to say it's courage to believe in something that's possible without evidence that you can attain it. But you see it, you feel it, you imagine it. Same way when you register for a race, something you've never done, to go someplace you've never gone, there could be all that fear, but you believe it will work out, so you do it. I think we need belief. And people used to believe in religion. They don't believe anymore in religion for good reason. And maybe not everybody, but count the people in the pews or the synagogue. It's drastically reduced, and what's replaced it is social media.
And isn't that sad?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But people need something to believe in.
And they really do.
If I can have them believe in themselves as a leader, and then if they're running a business, the reason I chose to do corporate work instead of public, because I could lead public workshops, not easy, but I could do it. But I wanted to get one to many. I wanted to get people in the place they work because they spend 70% of their waking hours in the job. And if they could just be nicer to each other, just give people a second chance, give people an opportunity to begin again, trust in the possibility of transformation for the self and other, we can have workplaces like Patagonia. Even Microsoft has completely changed how they operate. They used to be a war zone before Satya Nadella. Now they're an organization, they're the most profitable company in the world. And the first thing that CEO did when he became a CEO is he had everybody take nonviolent communication. Who does that? But he instilled this sense of respect and humanity in that organization and then told everybody, if you don't treat people with respect, you can't work here.
I like that.
Before him didn't do that. And I don't know if we could get 10% of all companies to operate like Patagonia or like Satya Nadella when he took over Microsoft, what would be possible for our kids and how people are in the world?
We would transform society in such a better way. No doubt about it. Yep.
And it needs it.
So, Maji, do people reach out to you? Do you work with people remotely? Do you have companies? Can individuals contact you? How does it all work?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So up until this week, we have only been available for organizations that want to work with us. So typically it's the head of HR or the CEO herself or himself that calls me. We're launching a program, Evolve the Leader Within, and it is a public program and it is for pennies. It's actually for fraction of pennies on the dollar of what we charge corporate. So anybody at any budget can afford to do. It's an 8-week leadership, and it's more of the what is my highest calling and how do I live it in the world.
I love it.
So that's available. I'm also pretty active on Instagram and LinkedIn. My website is margaretgraziano.com. That's my personal website. And then my company for organizations wanting to elevate how people work together, transform their culture, is keenalignment.com.
I love this. Now, is this done by Zoom or do people have to come in person?
The Evolve the Leader Within is definitely done by Zoom.
Okay.
We have an annual women's retreat that we do every year that we have been doing live. And that is typically in September and January. And that's in Northern California. And then with corporations, we toggle between Zoom and their location or my location in Santa Cruz. I also lead retreats out of my house for 3 or less people.
Excellent. You are just what the doctor ordered. I mean, this is refreshing.
On a mission.
Yes, you are.
We can
I
tell.
love this.
We can tell.
I love this. And your insight. You know, I think a lot of people may have observed some of these things, but they haven't verbalized it and haven't analyzed it like you have. You're extremely wise.
Thank you.
And making such a wonderful change. This is exactly what's needed. And it doesn't just apply to business.
That's right.
It doesn't. But it applies everywhere.
So you asked about how people reach me. I encourage people to read the book, Ignite Culture, even if you don't work in an organization, because the whole first third is what Evolve the Leader Within is about. It's about inventing a possibility for your life, identifying your calling, your values, and the difference, how you want to contribute while you're here, while you're on Earth. And then who you need to surround yourself with and what's the architecture that's going to help you make that difference. And I should have started the interview with this, but my calling is people are liberated. And I am definitely on a mission to do that. I'll do it till the day I leave Earth.
You have a purpose and you're making a difference for humanity. And this is so important. Now, do people find Ignite Culture on your website or can they go to Amazon as well?
Oh, yeah. Amazon, barnesandnoble.com, wherever you like to buy on Kobo, wherever you like to buy online books. The book is on my website, Margaret Graziano, but when you click the link, we're going to send you to Amazon.
Okay.
Okay.
I am so glad we had you on the show, Maji.
No
This
kidding.
is your perspectives make so much sense. It's like, why hasn't somebody like Maji been around? I mean, we needed you thousands of years ago.
You know what, Shelley? There are people having this message, but when I went online to look at my competition, I was shocked that the majority of the speaking bureaus are representing white males talking about culture.
Interesting.
I was shocked.
Mhm.
And at first I said to myself, oh, there's not a place for me. You know, like we all have that little voice
Sure.
that says,
Yeah.
you know, they've picked who they want. And then I said, damn it, no way. I am going to make those people know who I am. And then they get to choose if they want me or not. But they don't even know who I am.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
And I think we need more than white males talking about culture.
I agree. Yes.
Me too. Yeah.
Thank you, Maji. And you stood up and said, yes, I can. And you are. This is excellent.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. This is fun. And I'm excited that people are doing what you two are doing.
Well, thank you, Maji.
Yeah. Thank you.
We're very excited the way the show's evolving and the kind of reception we're getting. Women are really loving what we're doing. And, you know, there are a lot of men who are listening to our show, too. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. So this is so terrific. This has been an honor having you on the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. We hope you've enjoyed this latest episode. And if you want to hear more episodes of Women Road Warriors or learn more about our show, be sure to check out womenroadwarriors.com. And please follow us on social media. And don't forget to subscribe to our podcast. On our website, we also have a selection of podcasts just for women. There are a series of podcasts from different podcasters. So if you're in the mood for women's podcasts, just click the Power Network tab on womenroadwarriors.com. You'll have a variety of shows to listen to anytime you want to. Podcasts made for women. Women Road Warriors is on all the major podcast channels like Apple, Spotify, Amazon, Audible, YouTube, and others. So check us out, and please follow us wherever you listen to podcasts. Thanks for listening.
You've been listening to Women Road Warriors with Shelley Johnson and Kathy Tuccaro. If you want to be a guest on the show or have a topic or feedback, email us at sjohnson@womenroadwarriors.com.
Turn your dial to find the frequency of the past.
Captain Midnight.
Where the classic stories of mysteries, sci-fi, thrillers, and suspense are found waiting to be heard once again.
Another case for Nick Carter, Master Detective.
You'll find a variety of those stories here, in their original form, where each episode takes you to another place or time.
The Man of Bronze, Doc Savage.
But only when you find the mystery frequency. Available everywhere.
The Shadow knows.